What is up, everyone? My name is Ashura and welcome back to the channel, and today I've got none other than Vegapunk. And so with Vegapunk, you can rest one Dawn, put a 5-cost or lower Egghead character onto the field or into your life, which is pretty interesting. He does have one caveat though. He's a leader that can't attack, and I know what you're thinking. Leaders that can't attack, dead on arrival. Well, not the case with this one. Vegapunk has some weirdly good matchups into Nami and Red Purple Law. So today I'm going to show you guys my list, show you how you can gain 2 life in 1 turn, and kind of show you guys generally the general flow of the deck, kind of what you want to be doing, and honestly how to take some wins with him because I have, and he's pretty fun. He's been a very fun deck to pilot, and I hope you guys can have fun with him too. So here's the deck list. Boom! So some stats to start us off with the deck is that we got 36 Egghead cards in the deck and 14 non-Egghead cards in the deck. This means that we're never going to be hurting for being able to use our leader ability to either put a 5-cost or lower into the field or into our life. And so as long as we're not countering needlessly with our Egghead cards, we should be fine to always be using our leader ability. And some of these also double as a way to actually just gain life and then put something to board, so that way you can then beat their board with it or beat face, because that's a very good strategy in this game, is that for this leader is to put something to life so that way they have to swing into you, then you put that to board, and next turn now you can use that automatically to swing into their board and get rid of their board or make them use counter. So honestly, some of these cards such as Shaka are going to be great doublers where you can put Shaka to life, put him to board, block another incoming attack, or honestly, block another attack, next turn put him back up, then swing into his board. So now with Shaka, you got a 3-for-1 essentially. And with Shaka, honestly, you can kind of get a 4-for-1 because you can then at the end of your turn put him back up if you have 3 life or less and have the Egghead stage active. Some people say the Egghead stage is a dead card in Vegapunk. It's a trap. I personally don't feel that way. Yes, it's never great to draw multiple stages when they aren't searchers and you can't, get extra value out of them. You can't play 2 Egghead stages and put 2 5-cost or lowers up, unfortunately. But honestly, being able to go aggro with the Egghead stage or be able to pivot to a more stall playing where you can kind of poke at them a little bit and kind of hold back, go a little more turtle, more defense, more fortress like. Being able to pivot into any of these roles is honestly really critical with Vegapunk. You got to stay on your toes, see kind of how your opponent is pushing you, seeing if they're pushing your life, if they're pushing your board, see if they're trying to do a little bit of both. If they're doing a little bit of both, they're dooming themselves because that's what we love. But again, we got to be able to stay on our toes and be able to pivot to whatever game plan we can, because that is one of Vegapunk's biggest strengths, is that he can pivot pretty well. Another great card in this deck is our Searcher, Lilith. She is a 5k beater, and so with that we can put her to board, search, then swing into our opponent's board or life. And honestly, if you're able to combo it with the Egghead stage early on turn 1 or 2, now they can't swing into her and they're forced to swing into you, which means you're going to get extra bodies on board or have some nasty triggers set up, such as Robin. Robin is completely dirty in this deck. She lets you draw 2 cards off of her trigger. That is great. That gives you amazing gas to be able to draw then into your Katakuris, which then can put your other cards that say play this card if your leader is Vegapunk back to life, back to board, and now your opponent has wasted attacks and wasted time, and you've got a big body on board for the benefit of it. And let's say Katakuri isn't feeling quite right there, you don't want to take something off your board, there's not a thing quite to remove on their board, you're at 10 Dawn, maybe you're at 1 life, right? You're kind of scared. I got the play for you. Drop a Yamato. So you're going to play Yamato, you're going to gain a life, and you get to pop something on their board, and then not only that, you leader ability for your 10th Dawn, and now you've gained 2 life in 1 turn. You're back up to 3 life total, and now they're having to fight through a big Yamato, whatever else you put into your life, and whatever else is on your board, because you've been cheating stuff to your board this whole time, And spoiler alert, if you've been playing the deck right, you've been putting stuff to your life, and you've also been having that stuff go straight to board to then destroy their board or destroy their life. This deck is very stallic and can honestly take the distance to any deck. Another critical piece here to make that work though is Atlas. Atlas is absolutely critical for this deck, especially here in 07. Atlas, she cannot get KO'd in battle, so that means your opponents are going to have to waste KO effects on her, and she's a 5 cost, not a 4 cost, which makes things just a little more difficult for them. And honestly, a lot of times your opponents might not feel that she is worth using removal on, and that works to our advantage because the longer she stays on board, the more value she's accruing for you. She's free attacks essentially into your opponent's board and your opponent's life. As long as you manage to keep their life even just one above yours, they're not going to be able to take Atlas out easily. They're going to have to use effects on her, and that's not going to feel good because they're going to want to save those effects for Shaka, for Yamato, for Katakuri. They're going to want to save it for anything else except Atlas, honestly. Through all of my games, there's very little times that they're going to take her out with effects unless you're playing against Lucci. Lucci, he is the exception to this rule. Lucci is a very difficult matchup for us, but in this meta, Lucci is a difficult matchup for everyone, including Lucci. We've got none other than Rocket Luffy in this deck. He's amazing. Trigger can pop a 4 cost, but honestly, we're not going to be usually putting him to life. We're going to be cheating him to board, so that way we can either use him right away to pop something and also get a card from deck, or we're going to let him simmer there, get an attack or 2 in with him, and then use him to pop something. He's critical in the red-purple law matchup. It's essentially popping a 4 cost for 1 Dawn and also grabbing a card. So that's amazing, honestly. He is a great card for any matchup, and when you're playing the deck, you're going to want to be looking for him a little bit. I've got him as a 3-up, so we can see him fairly frequently, but not the most. There's just other cards in this deck that we want to be hitting just a little bit more, like Lilith and Shaka. With Lilith, if we're hitting her often, we can cycle through the deck and, you know, pick up those Rocket Luffy's. As well as we have a 2K in Edison. So Edison, if we're at 2 or less life, we can drop him and on play, draw 2 cards and trash 2 cards. So this lets us cycle through our hand. Let's say we have some Katakuris maybe that we don't quite need, drop 1 or 2, and then, you know, get some new pickups, especially if we're trying to go quick against Red Purple Law. Or, you know, let's say we got some Kingdom Comes in hand, we're playing against, again, Red Purple Law, or maybe we're playing against another Nami or something. We don't need Kingdom Comes. We can cycle those out so we can then build our board quicker and be able to get what we need in hand, like counters or honestly just big bodies. So Edison is great for cycling our hand as well as Luffy. In this deck, we're also running Pythagoras as a 3-up. So this guy has an on KO that if you're at 2 or less life, you can play a 4 cost or lower egghead character from your trash to your board. So this is good to basically help keep your board up, as well as honestly almost having another Atlas in the form of Pythagoras, where your opponents aren't going to want to get rid of him, because if you have an Edison in trash, this is going to enable free hand cycling, so that way we can dig to what we need to help us get out of a bad situation. And Pythagoras, he's great. I love being able to play him and then have my opponent not be able to remove him, just like Atlas. So sometimes you'll have a board of essentially 2 Atlas and maybe a Pythagoras, and they're kind of forced to decide what they want to do. Sure, you can get rid of Pythagoras through combat, but then I'm going to get an Edison that is going to be a 5k body, and I can swing with that next turn, and I'm also cycling my hand. So sometimes they're just going to be leaving that on board, you know, kind of take the hits, and they're going to just try and leverage their game through being able to counter out of those hits. And that works for us because once they deplete their hand of counter, we've now got a full board, and we're going to be dropping big bodies to sustain ourselves and then swing into their board, and their only counter power is going to be what they get out of life. And if we stall them and do only a few hits and just control their board, then it's pretty easy to be able to kind of control them just like an L, essentially, you know, classic yellow, to be able to kind of get them into a stranglehold where they can't get out of it. They're only getting a couple cards each turn, and that's just not enough to dig themselves out of that hole. Another card though that is essential, that gives us a lot of value, is going to be this event card. Please save me. So this card has an amazing trigger that you can put a 5-cost or less character that is egghead from your trash to the board. And so essentially we're going to combo this usually with Shaka. And so normally we can put this card to life, we'll get hit, and then we can take a Shaka that we don't have access to in our trash, and then we can put that to board and be able to use that as another blocker, or honestly push for game in the next turn and either clean up their board or take them down to 0 life and just take them out. I believe in the game I'm going to show you guys here real soon, I take the deck down pretty easily, and I'm able to get this, I believe it's a Yamato, down to 0 life through just constant beatdowns and being able to use the please save me with the Shaka. A couple of cards you guys might not be used to seeing in a Vegapunk list is Flampe. So Flampe is a great 2k counter in that she is a 1-cost, and if we put something to life that, let's say maybe we need to get back, we can put a Flampe down, grab that, and also draw a card from our deck. Also, let's say we are playing a little more of a stall game, we don't have quite the right stuff in hand, and we don't need the counter immediately. We can play this Flampe to, again, essentially do a draw too. We're trying to fix our hand with Flampe here. It's why we're only running her as a 3-up, is that we're not always trying to see her or be able to use her. She is just as much a 2k counter as a card that we're going to play out. And she works really well in that, let's say we are needing for cards and we're at 10 Dawn. We can play her, draw 2 cards, and then play a Yamato and gain another life. I know this is a little unconventional when we can put a card from hand to life with Vegapunk, but this is also a scenario where maybe you've honestly gone the worst and you bricked. You don't have an egghead card in hand. This enables you to be able to try and get egghead cards in hand, because let's say maybe you're stuck with a Katakuri, Yamato, and a Flampe on 10 Dawn. Well, let's Flampe, grab a card from life, and let's grab a card from deck. Are either of these egghead? Can I maybe heal with the egghead card with leader and then play a Katakuri to heal again, essentially gaining 2 life that turn and drawing 2 cards? That's pretty big. Alternatively, let's say the egghead cards you draw, you don't really want to put them to board or to life. Well, now you can just Yamato, gain a life, pop something. So that is just as much a good play as any. And we also have 2-cost shared Hoshi blocker. This helps us naturally with our black matchup, and this will help us with any matchup, honestly, that is not red purple off. This is going to be a great blocker that we can always use, and if they decide to pop it, well, better for us because most of our deck is triggers, so being able to put a card from our deck to our life is going to be amazing. That's probably going to be a trigger for us, and if not, it's kind of like a free form of card draw. And there you have it. Here is Vegapunk for 07. I will be making a list for 08, and as soon as 08 drops and pre-release starts happening, you guys will get that video, I promise. That way you guys can grind that list out the whole way through 08, and I have so much fun with this list, and I hope you guys do too. Enjoy the game. Alright, looks like we have green yellow Yamato as our first matchup here, so we know that they're going to be aggressive and they have double attack as part of their leader, so we're definitely looking for some blockers. So double Shaka and Shirahoshi is amazing. We're going to go ahead and throw a Shaka to the top here. Go ahead and let them attack into us whenever they can, and we'll get that Shaka to board. And Atlas is pretty good here too, since we're going to want to use that Atlas to our advantage. We'll definitely be lower life than them most of the game, so use that to our advantage and be able to use the Atlas to basically swing into their board, destroy it, and we know Yamato isn't running that much removal in the form of effects, so we know Atlas will be difficult to remove for him. As you can see, we're already low on cards in hand, but that's okay. Yamato is going to be swinging into us, and from there we can go ahead and build a board. Alright, and Edison is a amazing top deck here. So one play here is to throw the Shaka. This is because we're facing Yamato, of course. But with a lot of other decks, we're actually going to be putting the Edison on top so we can get a body in play, as well as be able to cycle through our hand and make sure that we have the cards that we need. If we had a bit of a bigger hand, the Edison play is a little bit more obvious for us to go for, but with a small hand like this, we're going to keep that Yamato close to the hearts in case we need to drop it for removal. And looks like he's probably going to try and go after my Shirahoshi, which is unfortunate. Or simply trying to get past it and deal some direct damage to me. Yamato is known for just bypassing blockers and getting around opponents' defenses and really just tearing you down, making you use counters out of hand until you've got nothing left. And now here he's targeting the Shirahoshi, but we'll use a Shaka as a free block. He doesn't have that much Dawn up, and his Ohm is not active, so I'm not entirely scared of it. And here we're actually going to go down to 0. I know that is a scary play, but he can only do another 6k attack, which we can counter out of with Edison or Shaka. And here he's actually going to go after the Shirahoshi, but we're going to do something smart. We're going to block with the Shaka and give up the Edison because we're going to be able to put the Please Save Me into our life, so that way we can either cycle a Shaka as a blocker and put that in trash and then put it back to board when they hit us, or we can play the Edison off the rip. Here we're going to see Alice's primary value here. Clean up the board. They can't get rid of it through battle effects, so she kind of will just clog the board for our opponent until they decide, hey, we don't want this around, let's use something with an effect to get rid of it. But Yamato doesn't run too much of that, so that's not a huge worry in this matchup. So having 2 of these on board already is incredibly huge. If they want to keep any sort of semblance on board with these 6k characters, they're going to have to give up counter like they're doing right now. Without these stages, it's a little more precarious to swing with your Shakas, but here we made good use of it. 7 into 5. That's that magic number. He didn't want to have to give up 2 cards to go down to 2 in hand, so we now have a full board with a Please Save Me, and he's got 2 characters that if he wants to attack, he'll have to buff up first. Here he has a second Ohm Holly play. Very reminiscent of 05 NL, but even more reminiscent of Red Purple Law nowadays, vomiting out his hand. So I'm doing something a little tacky here. I am actually going to replace the Shirahoshi for the Edison. This is letting me dig into my deck a little bit deeper, kind of see what it has to offer. You can see there's another Shirahoshi, so I'm not too sad about losing the first one here. And now we have a 5k body, so that way we can push board because he is not going to have that many cards in hand. And if we play this right here, I think we can actually take him out. So let's go 7 to phase here. He'd have to give up 2 cards in hand. And if this doesn't go according to plan, we can always back up, get a life, and drop Shirahoshi. He takes another, which is amazing. We'll keep going. We'll attack for 9 here to really rip cards out of his hand. Alright, we got that life. 7 to life. He'll have to give up something. Okay, 2 cards. And Yamato is known to be bricky. Alright, and there you guys have it. We got there.